This is Paul Schneiderman today on the 68th edition of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio. Today as my special guest for the second time, I have University of Washington basketball legend and longtime NBA player and PAC-12 basketball commentator Eldridge Recasner. I also have the honor today of hosting Sports and Stuff with Rick Dupree, longtime broadcaster, former University of Washington athlete himself, and Rick is the host of the One-on-One with Dupe show at Rainier Avenue Radio, and Rick and I have been friends now for a few years, and it's fun to have Rick co-host a show with me for the third time. Rick's been a mentor and a friend for a couple of years. So two good gentlemen here, and also my producer today is Chad Anderson. Chad's also host of the Northwest Rap Show. A lot of good things going on at Rainier Avenue Radio, a lot of political shows, lifestyle shows, sports shows. We have a great sports department. I know I'm a little biased. We got a good sports department here with shows hosted by Rick himself and Masvita Morari and Renaud Laurent. I don't want to miss anybody. Granville Emerson, but got a good list here.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier, Eldridge is a member of the Washington Husky last century selection team, and a great basketball player, and it's just great. Love Eldridge as an analyst. Always fun to hear you and talk to you. Always get the giggles with your wit and charm and everything. And you know, it's funny. The great broadcast, the famous broadcaster Larry King one time said that his worst interview was with the late actor Robert Mitchum. Apparently, a lot of Mitchum's answers were yes, no, I don't know, I don't care. I'm not going to get that from Eldridge today. I'm going to get a lot of vibrant discussion. There's not going to be no little yes or no answers. So
thanks for having me, Paul and Rick. Man, I see Rick rocking his Garfield gear over here.
You know, got to represent my mom. I know. My mom. Paul said, "You go to Garfield?" I said, "No, but my mom
you
did."
You didn't even go to Garfield? Oh Lord! I thought you were an alum.
No, but my mom, class of 1945, I believe.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
So,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Also fun to see Eldridge's mother, Joyce Recasner, in our studio today as well.
Yeah, my mom was here. So. Speaking of 45, that was the year my mother was born.
Likewise,
really?
My mom as well.
Wow, yeah.
So I
just want to say, Paul, congratulations! 68 shows, man. That is an accomplishment. Congratulations, you are doing
thanks,
it.
Rick. I've learned a lot from you, and I've appreciated your support through this whole middle-age venture I'm doing. So take a little break from the practice law. Take a little break from the practice law of this show, but still doing that as well.
I'm middle to late age, man. I'm getting past middle age. Let me tell you.
Hey, you know what? If I get Eldridge Recasner back a second time, I got Rick Dupree co-host with a third time. I haven't got a pink slip for you guys yet. So what the heck?
You're doing something right. All right.
Hey, Eldridge, so real quickly, Rick and I are just going to ask you some questions, all sorts of basketball-related subjects. I know you're involved in the NBA Retired Players Association. Anything new in what's going on with the retired players?
We just had a board of directors call for our budget for 2020. Some names that folks out there listening will remember: Spencer Haywood, of course, former Sonic Basketball Hall of Famer; Dave Cowens, former Boston Celtic Basketball Hall of Famer; Big Smooth Sam Perkins is on our board, as well as Nancy Lieberman, one of the greatest women players of all time; Grant Hill. Who else is on the board that you guys might know by name? But we've had some pretty big time names on the board of directors. I've served 2 terms. So this is my 6th year, so I'll be rotating off this year at All-Star in Chicago. But we handle everything from negotiating the pensions to health care to royalty money paid out to the players, all of that stuff. We had a full-court press clinic here in Seattle at the Meredith Matthews YMCA where I did a clinic time to Lenny Wilkins. That was the full-court press program. That's a part of the National Basketball Retired Players Program. Yeah.
And you guys are doing a lot in terms. You mentioned pension and what have you for the retired players. People forget that a lot of these retired players, they weren't making the big dollars that the guys are making now, and a lot of the resources aren't available. So you guys have had to fight quite a bit to make sure that they're taken care of.
For sure. And when you're young and you're making millions, you don't think about a couple $100,000 down the line. But when you get 50 years old, you're like, wait a minute, $10,000 a month. Okay, that sounds pretty good. So we negotiate all that stuff. We fight for all that stuff with the NBA. And it's just, a great organization that was started by Oscar Robertson, Dave Bing. Folks around here in Seattle probably remember Archie Clark. Oh, yeah. And also, Oscar Robertson, Dave Bing, Dave Cowens, Dave DeBuscher. Yeah, it was started by those guys.
Famous players.
27 years ago now, I think it was. Yeah.
What an elite group.
Yep.
It's like hearing about the the Kennedys and the Roosevelts, the NBA and stuff.
Yeah, anytime you got a group with Oscar Robinson in it, it's big time, man. He's one of the greatest players of all time.
Paul Schneider, host of Sports and Stuff, with Rick Dupree as my co-host, and on RainierAvenueRadio.world, and we got the great Eldridge Recasner on. So Rick and I were talking about this before on the show, Eldridge. What's your take on Adam Silver's plan, speaking of NBA basketball, to knock the season down to 78 games? He's also talking about this in-season tournament for all teams. They would split up a bunch of money from like November through December. The third major part of his proposal is a new playoff system where there'd be a play-in tournament where the top 10 teams in each conference would qualify. And there could be a Final Four where the championship could be between two non-conference teams. What's your take on
I don't
Silver?
like none of it.
You don't like none of it?
I don't like any of it at all. I thought she was going to ask me if he was in support of Seattle getting the team back. I'll say yeah, but the guys are making millions of dollars. I mean, 150 million, 200 million, and he's going to give them additional money for a tournament. That makes zero sense to me. I don't get it. And the league is what it is. Free agency has finally become that, so guys are kind of moving to where they want to be. And we all know the West is a lot more powerful than the East is, but that's just the way that it is. I think I like the format the way it's been. I don't like cutting the season. I mean, I don't know any other job you can do for 6 months out of the year and make $30 million, and then they're going to talk about cutting your workload down and this whole load management thing. I just think it's ridiculous. I mean, when I played, and I played on some pretty high profile teams when I played. I played for the Houston Rockets in 95, 96, right after they won back-to-back championships, and I never remember Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler sitting out games for load management.
Right, yeah.
It was ridiculous. They just didn't do it. They played, I'm not saying they played all 82 games, because if they were injured, obviously they didn't play. But if they were healthy, they at least played the first 5 or 6 minutes of each half, because people are spending their money to go out here and see these guys play. I just drove down to Portland to see Matisse Thybulle when Philadelphia played the 76ers. If you drive way down there and all of a sudden you hear that Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum aren't playing, and you just spent $250 on a ticket.
That's a good point.
You got to get a hotel. You're going to be pissed. So I just don't. I don't agree with that at all. I don't like that at all.
What do you guys think of giving the top 10 teams a shot at the playoffs in each conference?
I think you should finish out your regular season, and wherever you finish, that's where you're at. I like it the way it is. You can't fix something that's not broke, because I don't know what the philosophy is behind this. I never liked the hand check rule. They're just making the league way too soft, in my opinion. When I was in training camp back when I came out of the University of Washington in 1990, we did 2-a-day practices for 2 straight damn weeks, and everybody was fine. Now all of a sudden these guys can't do 2 days in a row. They got to get a day off. So I just think it's just getting way, way, way too soft for me.
Yeah, it's interesting because you look at guys, and there are a lot of complaints. I mean, part of it is the season; it's a long season. Granted, but like you said, the return on that is that you're making millions.
That's why you're making big bucks.
That's why
exactly.
That's
why you get paid millions. You're supposed to be able to handle it.
Yeah. I mean, Adam Silver's a marketing type of guy, though. I mean, do you think that you made an interesting comment? You said, "If it ain't broke, don't fix it." And I mean, is he trying to tweak something that is working? Now you have a proliferation of European players in the league now, and people are talking about that the NBA game has gone to a 2-man or 3-man game, especially when you get to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. But in contrast to the European game, but yeah, it's just interesting. I mean, again, your feeling is it ain't broke, so don't mess with it. I
think they're overthinking it way too much. I think analytics is playing too big of a role, and I just don't agree with it, man. If you'd have told me if somebody tells me Michael Jordan's not going to beat them with mid-range jump shots, I bet my life you're wrong. So a lot of stuff is changing, and change is good. Sometimes you see new rules implemented, and I think it's good. But having a playoff system kind of like college basketball for the NBA, I just think is ridiculous. What's the purpose of playing the regular season? That's what the regular season is for your seeding for the playoffs. And I think that's the way it should remain.
Did I say earlier, guys, that Mr. Recasner is not going to be giving simple yes or no, I don't know answers? We got it. Yeah. Paul Schneider, a host of Sports and Stuff, Eldridge Recasner and Rick Dupree co-host today. Let me just hit a few more subjects now. We could talk for the whole show on some of the NBA playoff proposals, but you, I think, on Twitter, Eldridge, had saying recently that you're a big. Let me know if I have this wrong. I think you believe the late Christian Velp should have his number retired. University of Washington. Yeah. Okay, I'm not personally against that, and the only Huskies basketball players that have numbers retired are Hubriggs, Brandon Roy, and Isaiah Thomas. Yeah. So if we're going to have Velp in, why not Detlef Schrempf? Why not Eldridge Recasner? You have to comment yourself if you don't want to. Why not James Edwards? Why not Steve Haas? Why not Jalen Noel? I mean, Is that if Velp gets in, does that open the door to a whole bunch of other guys who should deserve
I don't know if that opened the doors to a lot of guys, but I know Christian Velp is the school's all-time leading scorer, number 1. He was Pac-10 Player of the Year, number 2.
Fair enough.
He was all-time leading rebounder, number 3. He was all-time leader in shot blocks, number 4, when he left. So I don't know about the other guys, but I know what that guy did. And to see that his jersey isn't retired, to me is just.
He was a team of yours too.
Yeah. But he was a stud. I mean, Steve Hawes is another one. Steve Hawes is the only person in history of UW basketball that averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds per game for his career. Now, what the criteria is, and nobody was going to make All-American over the UCLA guys back in his era, so you can kind of understand. It wasn't like he wasn't a great player, but hell, Kareem, Bill Walton, all those guys at UCLA, so it was kind of tough. Good point. But, I mean, there's some guys that definitely belong in there, and Detlef is probably another one. But I think Chris Velp belongs in there. Detlef wasn't Player of the Year in the Pac-10.
Now, I didn't say it to come on yourself. You can recuse yourself.
I'm not in that class. I wasn't Player of the Year.
Well, you had a good career, Eldridge. What do you think, Rick? Do you think Christian Velp's a good?
Well, I think all the points that Eldridge brings up are very valid. And you look at the time of his career, what he accomplished, what those teams accomplished, as well under Marv Harshman. I mean, there is an argument to be made.
Oh yeah. They were 2-time Pac-12, Pac-10 champs. Back then. Like I said, he graduated in '87, so what's that? 32 years ago, and he still has the record. I mean, that's unbelievable.
Yeah, no,
you mentioned my mother. My mother is here, and Chris Velp passed away. And every year around this time, when his son is playing, I think about him. And I just remember my mom always telling me, give me my flowers while I'm living. And I think it was a missed opportunity. That UW didn't put Chris Velp in the Hall and have his jersey retired. He's in the Hall of Fame, but didn't have his jersey retired while he was still here. Yeah.
Well, legitimate cause, Eldridge. I just kind of wanted to get your take on. Sometimes you let one person in an organization doesn't open the door for a case for others, but you brought up some good points.
And I do think that Eldridge brings up a good point. Is that what's the criteria? What are you looking at? And you only have 3 guys at this point.
Yeah.
But what is the criteria? And is it something that's consistent, or is it more?
You know what? I've been out here 34 years, so it don't make no sense to me biting my tongue. I don't want to step on no toes, but I was originally told you had to be a first-team All-American, and we all know that Isaiah Thomas wasn't a first-team All-American.
True.
So that's not the criteria. I mean, there's no argument at all when it comes to Bob Hubriggs. He was Player of the Year in all of college basketball, led UW to the Final Four, so that was a no-brainer. Brandon Roy was a first-team All-American. But when you look at a body of work or what somebody done over their career, I'm talking about from their freshman year to their senior year. Chris Velp was the Pac-10's Freshman of the Year. He was the player. He should have been Player of the Year twice. I just don't think when it comes to body of work, I don't think nobody has a better body of work than he has.
You bring up some good statistical points for the case for Chris Velp to have his number retired as well.
Oh, it's a no-brainer, man.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Paul Schneiderman, host of Sports and Stuff on Rainier Avenue Radio with Eldridge Recasner and Rick Dupree hosting. So I read something, Eldridge, recently, and Rick, I want you to pine on all this too. So John Wilner, San Jose Mercury News writer, he selected Arizona's Derek Williams as the Pac-12 player of this decade, and he picked Dana Altman as the Pac-12 coach of the decade. Good picks, you think?
This decade, you're talking about
2010 through 2019. Yeah.
Derek Williams from
U of A.
I don't know. I think there's some arguments to be had with that. I know there's been some other great players. Everybody leaves early now.
Right.
That's one thing. But I know there's been some great players. You look at Brandon Roy, did 4 years here. James Harden was at Arizona State. Russell Westbrook. I mean, they might not have had as good a career in college as he had. But that's a questionable one for me.
Well, yeah.
I don't know about Derek Williams.
Those guys were before 2010, though.
Who's the guys in 2010 that we're talking about?
Well, one guy that he did not include is Zach Levine because he barely played for UCLA. Levine might be a raw better player.
No, Zach's not in that. He didn't do that much.
Yeah, a lot of those guys, I mean, obviously didn't have great, as you mentioned, college careers.
Yeah.
But when they got to the pros where it opened up and their athletic ability, their talent, what have you.
Well, that might be a good choice. If I don't know how many guys, I'm trying to think. Yeah. I've been doing Pac-12 basketball, and how many guys have been. I'm trying to think. Dylan Brooks, Player of the Year. I'm trying to think of the guys that won Player of the Year in that era. So I don't know. Dana Altman, you can't argue what he's done. Yeah, I think he's probably been the premier guy over the last 10 years.
Really is hard to argue about Altman. I mean, I'm not a huge UBO guy, but it's hard to argue.
He's good, man. It's kind of hard to argue with him.
I know. He got a Final Four in there, right.
Yeah.
Well, Eldridge, Pac-12 basketball, you cover it. You're a commentator. I see it at the games, and I see you on TV.
Yep.
I think I just mentioned Oregon, one team in this decade made the Final Four for the Pac-12, University of Oregon. Was that just an aberration, or is the Pac-12 just a subpar basketball conference compared to some of the other conferences?
I think one of the reasons is our players all leave early. I mean, we have really good players drafted every year, and I think you're going to see it again this year with the University of Washington. Isaiah Stewart and Jaden McDaniels are projected lottery picks, so I doubt if you see them on campus next year. And just imagine if they could have stayed here, for 4 years. And I think the same thing happens around the league. UCLA loses guys every year. Oregon last year, Bobo, Lewis King, Kenny Wooten Jr., they all had eligibility left. Bobo and Lewis King were freshmen, and they leave. So I think that has a part of it. You look at a great program like Villanova that's been to the Final Four a few times, but they always have guys that are seniors, juniors and seniors on their team. They don't go after the one and done guys. So I think that's something that plays a factor.
I was going to ask, you see that. Do you think it's more prevalent on the East Coast where guys are staying longer in their careers, or is it just particular schools, like you said, not going after guys that are one and done?
I think it's particular schools. I think Kentucky's the granddaddy of recruiting one and done guys. They found a way to make it work. But I've personally heard from other coaches in the industry that Jay just doesn't do that at Villanova. Jay Wright he doesn't go after the one and done guys because it depletes your program. So he goes after that second tier guy that he knows is going to be there for maybe 3 years. UW, I think this is the first time in the history of the school that they've had two kids that were ranked in the top 10. Obviously, Markel Folks before that, but with Isaiah Stewart and Jaden McDaniels, I mean that's huge. But just as the fans get to know them and get used to them,
they're gone.
Yeah, you got to start all over.
Yeah, I used to have this argument with my brother David Dupree, and talking about, I was like, guys should stay in longer. And I remember the collective bargaining agreement changed. It used to be a couple of years that they had to stay in 2 years, and it went to 1 year. And kind of rethinking that. I mean, the reality is this: the body only can last for so long. Yeah. And the younger you are, I mean, and so I don't fault these guys for making that decision to be one and done. But I agree with you, Elder. It's tough because how are you recruiting? How are you building a program? I love what Mike Hopkins is doing. I think he's a great coach and building a great program at UW. But it's tough when you have guys that are projected and they're gonna. I mean, I don't blame them.
Think about it. Next year we won't have Isaiah Stewart and Jaden McDaniels. Supposedly.
Right.
That's going to be a huge blow. But that's the nature of the beast now, and that's what universities are doing. Yeah. Some deciding to go after the one and done guys. Others are saying no, we want more long term players.
Rick has a question for you in a second. I'm going to have you ask this question. We were talking about it right before Eldridge before we started the show. Paul Schneiderman again on sports and stuff on RainierAvenueRadio.world. If you're just tuning in, I got former NBA player Eldridge Recasner with Rick Dupree, a longtime Seattle broadcaster. So I think Rick had a question for you about your thoughts on. Well, I'm going to let you ask the question. Hopkins and Romar, and just what you think.
I'll
go ahead and ask.
I think Hopkins. I mean, looking at what he's done, and I think the reputation he had on the East Coast, and he has been able to recruit on the East Coast and bring guys here out west. And wondering, what do you think the strategy has been? How has he been able to get guys from the East that maybe in the past the University of Washington couldn't get, but he's been successful?
I think the main thing is he was at one of the greatest programs in college basketball. He was at Syracuse with Jim Boeheim, and then I think the next biggest thing is, man, he's just so energetic. If you ever been around him, you're like, what's wrong with this guy? He's like he just finished a giant cup of Starbucks coffee or something. But he's just high energy. I think his players like him. Obviously, he knows what he's doing. Anytime your first 2 years and you're coach of the year in a major Power 5 conference like the Pac-12, you have to be really good and know what you're doing. But I think it's a combination of those two things. He spent 22 years as an assistant at Syracuse, so he knows all of these kids. He's out there recruiting them. Like you said, he was able to get Isaiah Stewart and Isaiah Carter all the way from New York, and that's huge. But I think it's just a credit to what he did at Syracuse and just the personality that he has. I've been seeing Percy Allen post some videos, and here Coach Hopkins is video bombing right doing it. Oh, he's a beast. He was unstoppable. So it just goes to show that he likes his kids, and I think the kid that play for him really like him. Yeah.
I'm sort of laughing myself. So I think Rick has a question. I stopped myself from asking the question. So I kind of realized. I was like, which question am I asking? I realized, gosh.
At first, I didn't know if he wanted to assist or if he wanted to bucket.
I caught myself on that one. So, Eldridge, Washington hasn't been in the Final Four since 1953. A whole different era.
A little bit of a drought, huh?
A little bit of a different era, to say the least. 2020, is this the decade Washington's going to be back to the Final Four? Be very prognosticator, Eldridge.
You know what, Paul? You never know, man. I think if they have the talent, I think if they can just gel and all play well at the same time. I mean, you think about it. Quade Green was a former McDonald's All-American. Got a scholarship to Kentucky for whatever reason. It didn't work out. But you know he has a talent because you don't go to Kentucky and you don't make the McDonald's All-American team without being talented. We know Isaiah Stewart is a stud. I mean, I love Isaiah Stewart, man. I just got to say this while we're on the air. I just think he's a throwback guy. He's a 6'9", body beautiful guy like Michael Cage, and he's willing to use his body in the paint. He never takes bad shots. Takes high percentage shots all the time. He's constantly working. He's constantly moving. He has a great attitude. I mean, I love the kid, man. You see 6'9", 250 guys, 50-pound guys now, they want to shoot threes.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I got this big body. I'm going to punish you down here in the paint. And I love that about his game. Now, if that's going to transition to the NBA level where you got to be a stretch four or whatever, I'm not sure. But I just love the fact of what he's doing in college. And, I'll go back to Brandon Roy. I remember Brandon Roy, when he was at the UW, he wasn't shooting a whole lot of three-point shots. He was a mid-range post-up guy, just killing guys. Yeah. And he seemed to have transitioned pretty good to the NBA game.
Well, yeah. And even in the NBA was not a three-point shooter. That wasn't his game. But I agree. Isaiah Stewart is a guy who I remember reading an article on him last year, as the Husky signed him. He talked about work ethic and just, what he got from his father and his family, that family support, how important that is. So, yeah, he is just
he
a
has a motor.
guy.
He has a motor. So, so I mentioned Quade Green. I mentioned Isaiah Stewart. Talk about Jaden McDaniels, a local kid from right here, Federal Way, 6'9", handles the ball like a guard, can shoot it on the perimeter. Isaiah Carter. I mean, they've really got some talent. It wouldn't surprise me if they could click and make a deep run and make the Final Four. It really wouldn't, because they have the talent to do it.
So if these guys become one and dones or two and dones, McDaniels and Stewart,
one and dones. You can forget about the two.
One and dones. There we go. You still think that this could be a great decade, the 2020s for Washington basketball? You still feel,
as long as Hopkins is there with the, I think Will Conroy is doing a fantastic job helping keep the local guys home. He did that with Jalen Noel, who could have left and went somewhere else. Yeah. He's done that. I think he played a major role in Jaden McDaniels' stand. Cameron Dollar. Yeah. Coach, what's the other? Coach Rice. Jamal Bay is from Las Vegas and Bishop Gorman High School, who produces some great players. And I think people hear Mike Hopkins was at Syracuse, but he grew up in L.A. and he went to Mater Dei. So he's got some West Coast connections as well. And I think he's going to be able to get a lot of elite West Coast players moving forward also.
Another little Mike Hopkins tie. His father grew up in Northeast Seattle, went to Roosevelt High School. So he has a little Seattle tie.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Little tip there. Paul Steinman, host of Sports and Stuff, with Rick Dupree co-hosting, and Eldridge Recasner, a lot of fun. Rick, get a question in.
Well, I go back, and we've talked a lot about.
He lets you get a question in.
Well, but I love it. Not basketball related, but we've had great conversations about your hometown, about New Orleans. Uh-huh. And I've taken kids down there from Seattle Academy for service trips and what have you. And I don't know if people here understand the impact of Hurricane Katrina, what that did to that region. Even now, we're looking at 14 years later, and some of the work, some of the things you've done, there as well, and will continue to do in your hometown. I'm just curious.
Rick, people don't, man. I mean, my neighborhood still isn't back.
Yeah.
It's been 14 years. My high school, Alfred Lawless Senior High School, has been changed to MLK, Martin Luther King Charter High School now. It just reopened 2 years ago. I mean, I go to my block, and there's one or two houses out of 20. I mean, you see just weeds and bushes everywhere like Hurricane Katrina just hit 6 months ago. So it's been devastating for some of the poorer communities. Obviously, you go down to Bourbon Street, everything's jumping. You see the Saints playing in the Superdome. I mean, you think everything is back to normal, but like you said, 14 years later, the city's still struggling to try to recover. So I appreciate the things that you guys do when you bring the kids down there and let them see just how devastated it was, because that's home for me, man. And every time I go back, I tear up, I cry, because it's just really painful to see an area where you grew up. Just the people are never coming back, and it's just a really, really tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's an incredible experience for individuals that haven't been there, in a very different culture.
It's eye opening. I mean, it's so drastically different from Seattle that is unbelievable, man. I mean, it really is. But a great city.
Yeah,
it's home.
Absolutely.
I still love it. But a part of me, I felt still to this day, went under when Katrina hit. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I will say this, Paul. It's just that being down there and the friendliness of people. We would have kids working, doing neighborhood cleanup, and people would stop and just tell them, hey, we want you to know if no one's told you, thank you so much, how much we appreciate this.
great
It's just a total different culture.
When are you guys' next trip, Rick?
I think in the summer. Yeah,
I wanna go,
yeah.
man.
I'm gonna have to. I haven't led a trip, so I'm gonna have to get back. But I want to.
Let me know.
Yeah, I want to bring you. I
love to.
actually want to bring you in and have you talk to some of our students because it's just such an impact.
love to.
Being from there and
would
having
love
that
to.
impact. Yeah,
I got to New Orleans the first time last year. I was actually talking to you about my trip to New Orleans last year. It was December 2018. I went on a tour, so that Katrina's side. It's very, very powerful. I hate to go from Katrina back to Pac-12 basketball.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry, I just took you off track.
It's more important. But what's your predictions to Pac-12 this year, Eldridge? I think Sports Illustrated has Oregon winning it. What are your predictions?
You know what? I think Oregon's a really good team. I just had Oregon's game last weekend. They played Texas Southern and they almost lost, which is, people out here in the Northwest might not know Texas Southern. I know Rick does. That's a SWAC school. They're in the same conference with Grambling and Southern and Jackson State, and it's a really, really small school. And man, they beat Oregon last year. They upset Oregon last year. They almost did it this year. I think Oregon. I think UW is right up there. I think Colorado is a really good team. But you know what? You just can't judge by paper. Oregon, I think, has a lot of new guys, just like the UW does. So I think sometimes it takes a while for teams to gel. But they're one of them teams. They're led by Peyton Pritchard, who's a candidate for Pac-12 Player of the Year. Oregon State, I think some people might be sleeping on them with Trace Tinkle's son. With Wayne Tinkle's son, Trace, and Stevie Thompson's son. I think they'll be in the hunt. But I like UW's chances. I really do. I just want them to make the tournament because I think if they can make the tournament, the experience they're going to build over the course of the season, I help them.
And if they can get hot,
if they can get hot, because they've got the talent, they're going to be really, really tough. Isaiah Carter, one of the best athletes in all of college basketball. And you put him with Isaiah Stewart, Jaden McDaniels, you just need a couple other guys to step up and play well. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I wish we had more time.
What do you mean you wish we had more time? Where we got to go?
I have a next show they got to record here. I can't help it. But Eldridge,
Chad, come on, Chad. Chad. Ladies and gentlemen, Chad was late, so Chad's got to work some overtime.
A lot of fun, Eldridge, to have you on, to have Rick co-host, and you've got me more pumped up about Husky basketball this year. In the
oh man, they're fun to watch. They're fun to watch. Yep.
Fun show. I can't wait to do this again with you guys.
All right, man.
Take care.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year, everybody.
All right, have a great New Year, guys, and just always fun to have a basketball talk with Eldridge.
And Paul, thanks for having us on the show, man.
Absolutely.
Really enjoyed it. Always happy to co-host.
Likewise. Do it again soon. Thanks, guys.